of things. Both Danny and I are business coaches, and we want to talk about anything. Could be business, could be politics, anything you want to talk about except for particle physics. That's a different show, and we'll be releasing it soon. I want to introduce you to Dani Apgar, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself before we get talking about some current issues.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I'm Dani Apgar. Paul and I have known each other for a while. Very excited that we started this show. He brings out my authentic self. So thank you, Paul. Much appreciated. I myself am an empowerment coach. I work with women. I help them get to where they want to be with financial freedom. And I also, prior to this, I owned a $10 million P&L in artificial intelligence. So the whole chat GPT is where everybody's like, oh, this is so new and amazing. It's actually been around for a while, but it is amazing to bring it out to the public and to see how the public uses it. But I was in technology for 25 years, and then I went through a divorce, and I thought, you know what? This isn't where I want to be. I don't feel that I'm helping enough people. And so that is when I started business coaching, executive coaching, and then my love is truly empowerment coaching, to give women just that extra fire, and that they may need to rise above the noise that may be out there. What about you,
Awesome.
Paul? Tell us all about you, sir.
Oh my God. Oh my God. For those of you who know me, you probably don't want to. But I am a business coach. I work primarily with software companies, but I seem to have a lot of construction clients lately. I've got 30 years in startup software. So I come from, a lot of where you come from. You were in San Diego. I was up in Silicon Valley, Dallas, New York City. I don't think I've lived in the same state for more than 3 years. But traveled around the country, had a couple of companies, executive with a couple of startup companies. Really come from that dig and fight startup, from the sales perspective, operations, marketing. Very good at digging up from zero and getting a company on its feet and heading forward, getting those few cornerstone accounts that really kind of make a company and get it rolling in the right direction. Work with a lot of PE companies, private equity, and helping them with their strategies. So I love doing it. And I loved when we met because I really wanted a partner to come out and start talking about this stuff, because I'm afraid of being on the internet. So didn't want to do it by myself, wanted to handhold, and Dani was like there. She kind of caught me and said, hey, let's do this together, because we've got a lot to say. We've got a lot of value to offer. And so join in, ask questions, do anything. We're going to cover very specific topics, and we're just going to kind of see where it flows.
Yes. Yes.
Sound good?
Yes.
So I know we had this entire thing kind of planned out for today, but something major happened in the marketplace, and it's really kind of sets on some course, because my daughter, who's 17 years old, just graduated from high school, and she's starting up at Ohio State in 2 months, and the Supreme Court just overturned affirmative action. I mean, it's a today thing, like right out of the gate. And I am really curious, Dani, because you and I have never had this conversation. How do you feel about it?
I'm scared for students, to be honest. Affirmative action. I started my career in human resources, so affirmative action in business has always been important. And then, the minds are that the college minds is where they're starting their business minds, right? So affirmative action is so important in inclusive, being inclusive, being able to understand diverse backgrounds and bringing those all together in a melting pot, to me, is just very important. So I am now afraid that the only the people that can afford college will be
Mm.
able to get into college. And I don't know how deep I should go into that, but that's my overall view at the moment.
I mean, for me, it's well, number one, I don't know, right? Let's see how this pans out. Uh, and I don't know if you know this about me, but my grandfather was black, and I have a very diverse background: Portuguese, black. We've got Native American. I mean, I'm a mix of everything you could possibly think of, plus a couple of shovelfuls of garlic. So I look at this. I spent 6 years in the U.S. Navy. I've been around every culture, especially in the software industry,
Mhm,
all the way across the board, and I love them all. It
mhm,
is I have learned so much from so many cultures, going through the throes of business and understanding people all the way from Russia, South Africa, China, Philippines, and there's something of always taking away. For example, I worked on a project in Indianapolis, Indiana, and one of the directors there was a Hasidic Jew, a very awesome guy. But when I first met him, he was very staunch. Right,
mhm,
he was just like a little standoffish. Your classic middle aged, you know, redhead. What he just didn't know who I was. After 6 months of working with that company, we got to know each other. We had a blast, and he had taken the time to make a special brew of mead for me to take when I left the project. And the reason I talk about that is because it's the affirmative action part is right to me, right?
mhm,
It is
mhm,
like everybody should play from the same level playing field. That means the same
mhm,
opportunities, the same grant funds, the same everything. And the determining factor is performance, right?
mhm,
So the determining
mhm,
factor is, did they qualify from the performance level? Like my daughter went, there were 88,000 applications to Ohio State.
mhm.
Just grasp that number.
That's a lot, yeah.
And only 6,000 got in. Okay,
Mhm,
and my daughter got in. She busted her butt. She got a couple of scholarships. She wrote. She must have wrote at least 500 papers. I mean, she applied for scholarships in every way, shape, or form, and she busted her butt to get there. So, I am so anti entitlement. I am like, earn it, earn it, earn it. And without me pushing on her, she earned it, earned it, earned it. I'm very proud of her.
mhm,
Um, so my question is the mechanism. Is the affirmative action mechanism as it sits correct, or can we put a better mechanism in place? What do you think?
mhm. I think that there can be a better mechanism in place, and I would like to speak to your point of putting in the work, right? It's about action. It shouldn't be about our color of skin or where we come from or who our grandfather was. However, Hispanics, blacks are not afforded as much opportunity to be able to get those things, to be able to work hard at it as somebody else would. So I do like I have always in all of my hiring have been like, I want great people.
Right.
I want great people. I don't care the color of their skin. I don't care if they're male, if they're female. Like I just want great people who want to change the world. And there's crazies in software, as you know. And I love that. I love the crazies. I am a crazy. So yes, if I could go through resumes and not know the color of their skin or who they are or whatever, like that seems great.
Mm.
But are we allowing enough people into an ecosystem that can put together a resume that could come across a software executive desk to hire?
Mhm.
more my question. Like that's where I'm thinking.
Yeah, I like that thought because it makes me think about football.
Mhm.
And I don't think of often of football, but no, I'm kidding. Um, it does make me think of football because I coached football and I coached at the eighth grade level. And what
Mhm.
you're saying to me, or at least what I'm hearing and what I'm thinking about, is it's a fundamentals question,
Mhm.
right? Is that the collegiate level the place to create that, or is it further down the chain at the eighth grade level to build in the fundamental practices and drive to be able to reach that? And to your point, are we presenting to our children at that age goals that are big enough,
Yeah.
right? Goals that really inspire them. Like,
Mhm.
and I'll use my daughter for the example because they wish wash, but the one thing that's been stable throughout childhood and from a very young age was I want to be a lawyer.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to be a
That's what
lawyer,
I wanted to be when I was a little girl
right?
as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, because you were at a legal firm in San Diego. My
Mhm.
wife started her career at a legal firm in Long Beach, same area,
Mhm. Mhm.
or in LA. So my daughter's like she drives not to fail because she has a big vision. So, are we creating a vision in our young people at this point to get to that point? Because I mean, it's built on these fundamentals. Back to football, right?
Mhm.
When you don't step on the field as an NFL player, you play eighth grade football and you build on your fundamentals, and then you get to high school football and it gets a little bit more complicated. You
Mhm.
start understanding blocking patterns and running plays, and then you get out of high school, you get to college. Now it's really more about cohesion with the rest of the team and working as a team and doing all that. And then you may get the opportunity to play in the NFL, where now we're really, but it's interesting about the NFL is if you ever go to a practice, they work on fundamentals,
Yeah. Yes, they do.
right?
Mhm.
Right. So, but it's a reinforcement of something that's been built over years and years and years of practice.
Mhm.
Um, we're probably way off the scheme of affirmative action right now, but I think there's something to be said for the mechanism and where the mechanism's placed. Now, I'm not on either side of, the Supreme Court doing what they did. To
Mhm.
me, cutting the legs out from underneath of something without having a game plan
Right.
to support those people and for support everybody.
Mhm.
This is ubiquitously across our nation's people, is that you've just cut a leg out and changed the entire system in a day.
Mhm.
Okay, and people are going to lose their minds over that, as they should, because some of this stuff really should be handled in Congress, right? They should go, this affirmative action isn't the right mechanism. It's unconstitutional according to the Supreme Court at this point. It's going to go up. Maybe we need to rethink this to put the mechanism in the right place so that everybody who needs support can be supported. And that's kind of the way I feel
Yes.
about it.
Yeah, I agree, and I always just look back at history because it does end up repeating itself, and what can we learn from history? And as you said, cutting off the legs of affirmative action, where if I had children, which I don't, which was a choice that I made, but I would want them to be around a diverse group of people, not always the same people, because this is a global world, not just a California world or Silicon Valley world, which I wonder if you and I crossed paths
I'm
when because
sure
I
we
was in
did.
Silicon Valley.
I'm sure we were at some of the post trade show parties. So,
Yeah, yeah. um, yeah, so I am curious as to how they're gonna handle this, and what will be, maybe this is an opportunity for students to band together again and make history,
yeah,
their own history.
absolutely.
this is an opportunity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'll just close this conversation out with one more thing because I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. On the very north border, I could throw a rock from my side of the water into Canada. I mean, literally. So, and the only thing I was exposed to the first 18 years of life was Native Americans and white people. So when I went in the Navy, it was like culture shock. Okay. I mean, it took me a good 6 months to like get my head wrapped around how different people acted and how different they communicated and all that stuff. And was really, for being so young, I was really mindful about it because I didn't want to come off like I had no reason not to dislike anyone. I've always been like, what's my favorite term? Uh, Asshole knows no race. So, so it's like I liked everyone until they gave me a reason one on one not to like them or have problems with them. So I think cultural diversity, I think it's important. I think it's absolutely necessary across the bounds. So it'll be interesting to watch what happens for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So
Yeah, we'll have to come back to the topic, or maybe we'll even, if you'd like to be a guest on our show talking about this, let us know.
yeah, absolutely. Or you can jump in on the chat and ask a question. We're going to talk a little bit, and this is Dani's bailiwick. She's like sharp. I gotta tell you, I think it kind of goes in with the affirmative action discussion, but a little bit, in the corporate realm about psychological safety. And I'm gonna let you jump in on this, Dani, because this is your thing.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, it does go hand in hand because it is a diverse world, and we do all communicate differently. And I believe that we should respect other people and how they are raised, and how the backgrounds that they come from. um, Psychological safety really, it should encourage open communication, where people are feel safe to be able to express their thoughts and their ideas, concerns, or fears. I was in human resources for a very long time before I stepped into sales, and then into a much larger role in artificial intelligence. But um, being able to talk about things, and having problem solving skills, I wish they would teach more of that in school. uh
Back to fundamentals.
yes,
I'm going to use the football again. You keep going.
yes, yes. But yeah, so with our it to be able to communicate, that then that will enhance collaboration, to then be able to boost creativity, and that allows risk taking. And it is those risk takers like the Elon Musks, like many of those type of people that are changing the world. um, and it also focuses on learning and development. And if I feel safe to be able to express myself, now, me being able to express myself should not mean that I demean anybody else, or that
Mhm.
I am putting anybody down. It's just me being able to express, like, I think this is what should happen on this project. Let's have a conversation about it. And if I'm psychologically safe in my workplace or in my school or wherever, then I know I can just speak my piece, and we can have a conversation around that. And then my mental well being is going to be in a good place, because I know that I can communicate, and that I can learn and really enhance myself, and then have a bigger impact on the world by that collaboration of open communication.
All right. Excellent. So I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Number one, in the corporate arena, you
Hmm.
have the bullies. and you have other people, and you talk about psychological safety. It's interesting to me over the years that there is, and God, this goes back to fundamentals again. It's kind of scary how we're going to go back here, but I think a lot of it does, is that self confidence, being healthy about yourself,
Hmm.
projects what that is, right? The
Yeah.
psychological being able to have that conversation means that you need to be able to step out in the world, right?
Yes.
And it's interesting to me that that the fundamentals of just being confident,
Hmm.
of understanding who you are as an individual and what you are as an individual has a major impact on that perception in the corporate workplace,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just interesting to me because I'm curious how, as an HR director,
Hmm.
right, in a corporation, how do you help people that don't feel psychologically safe? I mean, from the perspective of underlying fundamentals that either weren't taught or they were battered down over time.
Hmm.
There's both, because I started this conversation off with corporate bullies,
Yeah.
and they can take a person who walked in the door and who was fully and wholly confident in themselves and able to have a conversation, able to to give to the team and able to create solutions or overcome obstacles, and then that one bad manager just drove them into the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
So a story just came to mind as you were sharing that. Um, because I've worked in places where the environment is an environment of fear, and the CEO is proud of that. And that was very interesting to handle,
Mm,
to try and manage, because I was managing up as well as managing down. Um, and in one company that I worked for, I brought in one of my very good friends to interview. And I think that this woman is just amazing and so smart and so articulate and just would bring so much to the table. She came in, she interviewed, and the interview process was a little crazy, but that's Silicon Valley for you. And um, I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks
wow.
after. And I thought, gosh, did I do something wrong? What's going on? And she shared with me, she said, Dani, I walked out of that meeting, or out of the different interviews,
Hmm.
crying.
Oh my
And this
gosh.
is a strong, like, this is like one of the strongest women I know, like, whom I get support from. And she was she was like, that I do not know how you thrive, how you live in that environment, but I'll tell you that I don't want to be a part of it. And and that was a wake up call to me, because as you live in an environment like that, you do learn how to swim. You learn how to survive. And it was at that point, though, that I was like, I wonder who else in the company does not feel safe in this environment, and this gets to be brought up, and to be brought up to human resources, to be brought up to the CEO. And I definitely opened up a can of worms, and I am forever grateful to her, for that. And it does start with conversation. It Back to your point of being confident, you still have to be confident enough to know if something is right or wrong. So if you're being bullied and you're not telling anybody about it, how will somebody know? So some people choose to just leave an environment, to just leave, their place of work, which is sad because attrition is so expensive within a company. If you look at employees as cost instead of assets, I look at employees as assets. Um, but they may just leave and go elsewhere. But I also like that's why with my why I chose empowerment coaching as my passion was to be able to give those underdogs, if you will, a voice. Because if they don't voice that they're being bullied, then they can't be helped or given the tools to help themselves.
Yep.
I feel like I went off on a tangent there, but
No, I don't think you did. I think you hit right where I was kind of aiming, right on the. You're throwing the dart for me.
Mhm.
So, no, I think that's huge. I think it's important. It's also, good CEOs, great CEOs, CEOs of service. Um, they recognize that it goes back to the vision of their company and the values that they operate from. And good CEOs, to today's world, I'm not talking the dark star of AT&T back in the day, who I worked
Yeah,
for.
we're present day.
Lucent
This
Technologies. We're
yeah.
present day, and good CEOs recognize that they need to hire to their vision and values, and ultimately that, as long as their vision and values are good, um, should carry down through the hiring process and through the managers that work there for him and the supervisors, and start opening up these companies. um, what's the better word? A more euphoric way of operating. How's that? um, so I just think I think it's an interesting statement because it translates down to equity for everybody.
Mhm,
Which does
mhm.
go into our first conversation. So that's yeah. Any other thoughts there?
Um, you know, I also worked for a holistic healthcare company for a while, and employers, I do believe, have a responsibility to take care of their employees in the aspect of giving them good health care so that they can show up to work and they can be healthy so that you can get more out of them to put in place a supportive environment. Supportive, not whiny ass bitches. um, and
I've heard that
yeah,
before somewhere. I'm not
right.
sure.
And to allow. Well, I will say this: coming out of corporate, coming out of artificial intelligence, coming out of all of that, there was a huge shift when I first started, and I was in recruiting and human resources and the software companies. I mean, I was recruiting people away from Google because Google was just starting.
Yep.
Who needs another search engine? You don't need that. And we have kegs. We have this. We have Red Bull. We have today I'm like, "Oh no, don't drink Red Bull. You're going to kill yourself." Like perhaps instead of the money that we put forth that some companies put forth into drinking events, we could put forth into some other holistic events. And you, as a beer drinker, may be like, Danny, what the heck you talking about? But there are some other ways to have collaboration that don't always entail drinking. Because I also, coming from an HR background, drinking caused a lot of problems.
Yeah. And I need to correct you on a detail. Number one,
Yeah,
I have to, this one sparked me, and I'm a little irritated right now. It's
yeah.
Scotch. It is not
Oh,
beer.
okay,
So
okay.
okay,
That's
let's
it. Yeah,
let's just
yeah.
just get that straight first.
Okay,
Don't ship me a keg of beer. Ship me a bottle of Scotch.
you
Good
got
stuff.
it.
All right. No, that's 100% right. Alcohol cause, I always found it interesting, especially in the sales game. And I grew up in the business realm in sales. So, whew, yeah, pretty bad. Some guys were really bad. and HR nightmares, marriage nightmares, the whole ball of wax. So
Mhm.
that is definitely not. And I feel from the corporate standpoint, I still go to a lot of corporate events, and it's changed. It is in fact, we were at my favorite company in the world. Okay,
Mhm.
Allianz Insurance.
Mhm.
My wife works for Allianz, and my daughter got a scholarship from them, and so we got to join their action group meeting, which is like they do it twice a month, and it's all the ERG groups and all that stuff, and they all get together. And now with them, which was a spectacle. It's wrapped around the 5K race coming up next week. It's wrapped
Mhm.
around devoting time to save the dogs in the
Mhm.
Minneapolis St. Paul area because there's too many.
Mhm.
It's all this volunteer time, and they're grafting around family related activities
Great.
as opposed to everybody going out drinking. And I mean, it was all over the place. It was just an amazing experience. So I
Well,
think that's
yeah, I think employers could even. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
nope. Go.
Oh yeah, I mean there can even be little shifts as well, just for health purposes. Instead of having a Coke machine, to having something that's a little bit more healthy, that's going to help the
Mhm.
longevity of your employees. And also, sugar is super bad for us. Um, and so, if we can help the mind stay healthy through collaboration, through psychological safety, and then also add in some healthier just ways of being, it's going to help your employees, it's going to help your bottom line, it's going to help their families, and it's going to trickle out into to be a much bigger impact. So I'm very much about holistic health and taking time to meditate and drinking water and um, breathing exercises. And I there are some good things that came out of the pandemic, and I believe that a lot more holistic practices were in the spotlight because of it, and so I'm thankful for that, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna throw a little surprise at you here, Danny.
Okay.
Sorry. I just came up with it for the podcast about 20 seconds ago.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, we're having some good conversation here, and this is really good stuff. But I want to make sure that the people watching have something to take away. So we're going to do a little segment here called Coach's Corner,
Ooh,
because we're
nice.
both coaches, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so we talk with clients all week long. I've got
Hmm.
30 clients I support right now
Hmm.
on a one-to-one basis, and I know you've got a ton.
Hmm.
And what most people don't realize is that we learn just as much as our clients do
It's true.
about all the businesses. Pardon me, about all the businesses.
Hmm.
So I thought we'd talk about our number one learning for this week from our clients and how our viewers can take some action on what we've
Absolutely.
learned. So I'm going to leave the first one up to you.
Okay.
What's your biggest takeaway from client meetings this week?
Consistency. Show up. And as Paul said, it really is coaching. It becomes a mirror to where you just see yourself deeper and deeper, and so that you're that then allows us to go further. But I was supposed to have four client meetings yesterday morning, and only two showed up.
Oh, geez.
Um, and that is a bummer. One, because they lose that time with me that's for them, but then also it's like, okay, how you show up for one thing is how you show up for everything. And if you won't show up for yourself, how you showing up for your family? How you showing up for your employer? How you showing up for your husband? How you showing up for your kids? So showing up, being consistent is key. That's my biggest takeaway of the week. What about you?
Wow. Yeah, I've got so many from this week, but I have to highlight I think my biggest takeaway, and I was thoroughly inspired by one of my clients this week, and So execution is the word.
Mhm.
Um, she started with us less than 2 months ago.
Mhm.
And she got on the phone, and the first thing she said to me, she goes, "I used to be a coach." So that can go one of two ways, right? It's either, oh, great, she understands the process, or, oh, crap, she's going to think, she knows the process
Mhm.
and she's going to sideline a lot of conversations. Well, she was the first of the two.
Mhm.
She literally executed on everything we said, and her business was doing about 80, or excuse me, her business was doing 50,000 a month,
Mhm.
right? And after 2 months, we realigned her marketing, we realigned her sales,
Mhm.
her sales process. She was missing, from my point of view, she was missing a couple pieces in her sales process, and she went on vacation to Europe
Mhm.
and she reorganized her staff. She did all this in like less than a month while on a trip to Europe,
Wow.
and her target was to hit 80,000, because I told her, we can double your revenue by the end of the first 90 days.
Mhm.
Well, she called me up, or she texted me and called me up. She goes, "I couldn't stop myself from going through the numbers. They hit 136,000 this month."
That's awesome.
My takeaway from this week is the power of executing on the plans that you make. And you should be making plans,
Absolutely.
not too detailed, but enough to get a linear view of where you're going with your business, and then execute. This was an amazing woman who really, really took everything to heart and just drove through. So that's my big takeaway, is execution.
Love it. Love that. Love that so much. Yeah. And we're coming to the end of Q2, going into Q3. So, really putting that plan together of what they want to execute, what they want to get done over the next 90 days. Now is the time, people. Get her done.
Get her done. Absolutely. So we're going to take this last little bit to talk about something a little more fun. Not that anything we're talking about isn't fun. Um, let's talk a little bit about the old Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So, everybody's talking about it. It's the number one. This is kind of interesting. It's the number one search term on the internet,
Wow.
but people are searching for it and not using it. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of curious, what your take on this Chat GPT, the AI
Yeah.
revolution, because it's
Hmm.
it's having an impact. It's impacting some companies very negatively. There was a media outlet that let all of its people go
Yeah.
this past week, and that wasn't stated, but I smell or hear some undertones to the move, and
Hmm.
I'm curious on what you're taking is, because you come from kind of early AI,
Yeah.
EAI.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, the thing with AI is bad data in equals bad data out. And I don't think enough people perhaps understand that. They think, oh, I can just input some information and Chat GPT will give me answers. Well, if you're not asking it the right way, it may not know the right answers. It's going to give you answers, but they may not be correct. And then that goes on to that whole, um, false, not false information. What's
Fake
that?
data, fake
Thank
data.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole fake
Fake
data.
news, fake
Fake news,
data.
that's what I was looking for. There we go. Fake news, fake news. And it I was a co-founder early on of well, not a co-founder, but early on I was asked to join um, a foundation that was all about AI and STEM for women and inclusivity and all of that. And it was Humans for AI. And it really, to me, it seems like there's people that are petrified of AI. They're going to take our jobs and they're going to take over everything. And then there's the other people that are like, oh, let the robots take over the world. Well, again, our human brains is the information that we're putting into AI. And so bad data in, bad data out, or good data in, good data out. It is so important, just on an AI holistic view, that we do get both, that we get the masculine and the feminine input, um, so it doesn't become too rigid in one way and go off in crazy world. Um, and there will be a lot of jobs lost, but there will be a lot of jobs gained. That's
Hmm.
how the world works. That's progress, people. So I, you know, like, I know I can go into Chat GPT. I do things the hard way though, and so I'm trying to relearn some of this, and maybe you'll help me here, Paul. But like, I know I can go in and I can have it write a blog post for me. It just doesn't feel authentic for me. And I know how to have it right in my voice. I know all of that from my background.
Hmm.
But I still, like, I feel like I'm not being as authentic, or I feel like I'm cheating. So then there's
Hmm.
people like me that I feel like I'm cheating, where actually if I'm not doing it, I'm going to fall behind because there's other people using it. So you can use it for social media. You can get different ideas. Like, I think it should be a starting point. It's like a somebody who writes a book who then has, hits a wall and it's like, oh my gosh, I have writer's block. You can kind of put something in Chat GPT, and it unlocks some more
Hmm.
creativity that allows people to move forward. So I think it's great. I think how it showed up on the market, even though it's been around for a very long time. Well, OpenAI has, and that's so interesting. People are searching for it, but then not using it. Not,
Not as much. I find it interesting. So I love this because I had a conversation today with a client, and he had asked me. He's running into some marketing, or he's running into issues with building his sales funnel and his pipeline, and wanted me to, give him some pointers, and I've written out pointers for this a long time ago. So I just, I modified my own content to fit his business, and which took 10 minutes, no big deal, and shot it off to him. Well, he gets on the call today, and he's like, that was really insightful, and it was long. He said it looked like it came out of Chat GPT, and I just kind of looked at him. I said, "What?"
yeah.
No, and I'm like, "No, that's
Uh-huh.
I wrote that like 5 years ago, and I pulled it back out because you were running into the situation I had written about.
Mhm.
So I just modified it to fit exactly your situation." I said, "But that wasn't Chat GPT. Thank
Yeah.
you very much," because it was relatively long. It had like 18 points in it, but it was really important that he aligned. And I was like, okay, so what does this mean?
Mhm.
Right? I'm not posing, I'm actually bringing content, but now the content's been devalued because of the fact that someone could have probably produced that
Mhm.
content pretty close
Mhm.
in about 30 seconds
Right.
without doing that. So here's what scares me. There's a couple of things that I find interesting. I also had another. It's been in the conversation with clients for a lot, but I have a client over in France. We started talking about this, and I said, he wants to automate all of his social media through an integration with Chat GPT. That's
Mhm.
that's the underlying thing. And I said, you can't do it. And he goes, well, yeah, I can. I can technically do it. I said, no, you can't. I mean, you can technically do it, but what happens when
Mhm.
everything on social media is now automated AI? No
Yeah.
one's talking to anyone. And here's the impact. So no one's talking to anyone because it's a Chat GPT or it's an AI, which means all the advertising that's being sold on the internet in social media is now only being viewed or not being viewed at all by AI as opposed to the people who do it. So we're actually getting into that pendulum starting to
Yeah.
swing, the other way. And it's going to be a while before, anything happens, but it's swinging over to the point where everybody will be back sitting doing their own thing. No one will be on social media. No one will be doing anything because they have their avatar
Mhm.
that's completely AI doing all of that. I feel like I'm talking about a science fiction movie.
Yeah, right?
It's interesting. We're going to that effect, not only with the fake profiles and the fake people and the fake ads and the fake this and the fake that are now being generated by AI. It has to do with, it is the next step of de-evolution of the species, because one of my favorite shows when my kids were growing up was Wall-E. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah,
the movie
Wally,
Wall-E?
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason it was my favorite, it was a cute movie, but there was just one segment in the movie where all the people were on the spaceship and they were all sit back in their chairs, lounge around, and they all look like basketballs,
Mhm,
and they couldn't walk
mhm.
because they had AI, robotics, all that stuff doing it for them. Now there'll be a large group of us who will go to the gym, and we'll take that time and do productive things with it, or try to get on the next level of psychological or philosophical thinking. But there is the 80%
Mhm.
that won't, and then it goes back to that fundamentals statement that we started this out with.
Yep.
They're going to lose the fundamentals, and then they won't know how to operate if the old solar flare goes off and everything shuts down. Right.
Right.
So I went totally sci-fi, but I mean, it's
I'm
almost
with
my
you.
reality. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting as I watch what's going on with AI, and I'm a big science fiction fan, by the way. I'll just
Mhm,
be completely upfront. Star Trek, Star Wars, but it's we're actually doing it, and that's been the whole point of science fiction, is that they think it up in Hollywood, and then we actually make it happen out here in the real world.
right.
And you remember Star Trek in the days of the communicator? What are we doing? I mean, we
Yeah,
do it. We
exactly,
do
yeah.
it now, right? No one
Mhm,
thought that would ever be possible back when I was a kid watching
mhm.
Star Trek, and now the first phone out was a flip phone from Motorola.
Yep,
Looked like a freaking communicator, right?
yep.
So
Well, and there's
um,
the Jetsons, the cartoons, the Jetsons where
that's
they
just,
were
yeah,
FaceTiming each other, and
yeah, yeah,
it'll never
exactly.
be possible, and here we are.
Here we are. So there's some trepidation from my perspective on where we take that. And this is probably a discussion for a later segment, but there are ethical considerations with global, with our species. What are we doing to our own species? I mean, we talk about global warming, we talk about everything else, but also, the
Mhm.
Terminator. Is just that start. I knew I'd get Arnold Schwarzenegger in here at some point. Um, I think it's an interesting thing to watch as it progresses. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, people, we are humans, and we're humanity, and I hope that we don't lose that
yeah,
touch.
we
It
have look at that. We've got someone who actually buzzed in and is enjoying what's going on. Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate the reach out. That's
thanks,
awesome.
Kim. Yeah. Yeah, there's a
So
movie called Idiocracy, I think.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
oh, yeah, I have thought many times, "Oh, please don't allow the world to go this way." 'Cause I can kinda see it in some areas,
well,
so
we're almost out of time here. Next time we will be completely AI, and we'll just write the script. And
Yes, I'm an avatar, I am not real.
well, it depends on who you talk to. I am real, and I'm not real. We just need to figure that out. So anyway, awesome, awesome time with you, Danny. Thank you very
Thank
much. I
Thank you,
think it's been
Paul.
great. Thanks for those who've been listening. And we'll be back same time, same bat channel next Thursday.
We'll be
And
back.
we're looking forward to it.
All right.
So thank you very much and
Thank
have a
you.
great day.
See you next week.